We got 4 games to go in the regular season now. It's getting intense. We are seeing things that are surprising us. So let's start with Anthony Davis. After they won in the bubble, I was told inside that building, listen, this is now going to be AD's team, and LeBron is going to be a facilitator on most nights. AD shows up out of shape. LeBron's camp wasn't happy. I will say, I don't know what has inspired him, but this is the best he's been as a Laker, is it not?
I would have to say, I mean, look, he had a pretty good run in the bubble, but in terms of outside of that, no question about it. And to think that at this point in AD's career, that he would show this kind of toughness, he would show this kind of desire and ability to play through injury, I can't tell you where it's coming from, but I'm glad to see it.
It's dominating.
It's just frustrating to see somebody as talented as Anthony Davis kind of get in his own way. Now, again, it's sustainability, and the games are only going to get harder and tougher. I don't want to make too much, as some people that you've had on the show of late have.
Yeah.
Like, they're beating teams they're supposed to beat.
Right.
They're
Houston.
doing what they should do.
Minnesota,
Playing a 7-game series. Actually, that's the most impressive win of all the wins that they had. That was the one I was looking at. I was like, okay, they're getting better. They're pretty good. But winning a 7-game series against Memphis or Denver or even Sacramento, people are underselling what Sacramento is. I know defensively they're not ranked very high, but this idea that they're going to, their eyes are going to be too big in the playoffs, I'm not subscribing to that notion at all.
Darvin Ham, I think a lot of people said who.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. They are now the number 1 defense in the league. So what that tells me, offense is about talent. Defense is about buy-in. So what it tells me is the players are buying into the coach's message. And they're doing it at about the same pace that the Celtics did last year with their coach, which is defense is hard.
Yeah.
It's effort. Not everybody wants to play defense. Westbrook's not a guy that bought in. So, I mean, Darvin Ham, did they find the guy?
He's done a tremendous job.
Yeah.
There's been criticism along the way, and he's made some rookie coach mistakes as far as decisions in certain times.
Right.
Trying to figure out the rotation. A lot of people, being a Monday morning quarterback on that is stop it. I mean, you're just constantly moving parts, and this isn't like a formulated team where you go, okay, I plugged this guy in for this and this guy in for that. What he has done best is he's just rolled with the punches, and he's continued. It's amazing because I've always thought of him as an old school type of guy.
Yeah.
How he came up, how he made it in the league, all of that. But his touch with players in terms of encouraging them has been remarkable. And it's the difference because they've had ups and downs, and they have this bright spotlight, and they have these expectations. And you're talking about a first-time head coach who's just rolled through all that and hasn't done it like in New York or L.A. or Big Mark. He was in Atlanta and Milwaukee, played in Detroit. Like, the places that he's been, he's never had this kind of spotlight on him, even as a complimentary player on a team. So I give him full marks for how he's done things.
So the Andrew Wiggins story is interesting. They're obviously not winning a championship without Andrew Wiggins. All their scoring is backcourt without him, like all of it. Draymond and Looney provide great roles, but they're not scorers. So Wiggins now is reportedly back in the Bay Area, which leads me to believe he's just going to try to get into shape. It's really hard at the frenetic pace of the Warriors that you're going to make me believe in 12 days you can get in playoff shape. Is he coming back? What are expectations? What's the story now?
I honestly don't know. I've heard the same as you, that he's back in the Bay, and he was working out somewhat on his own. That's completely different than working out with the team, getting into game shape. I haven't heard that the issue that took him away has been resolved. That's my concern. The idea that he's back in the Bay and now it's just a matter of time before he plays, that may be the case, but until I hear that the issue, then I hate to be, I don't have it nailed to the point where I want to talk about what it was. It's not the rumors that you've heard, but until I hear that that's been settled, there's always the possibility that he's going to get pulled away again, or that just mentally he's not going to be there to the level he needs to be. So I wouldn't, I think it's a possibility. I wouldn't count on Andrew Wiggins coming back just yet.
You know, it's interesting with Kerr. So Jordan Poole is a really good scorer. He's not always a great basketball player and makes a lot of mistakes. And I have this feeling watching Kerr and listening to his post-game comments that he is tolerating Jordan Poole, that he drives him nuts, and that I do believe they will move Poole at some point out. I just see Kerr's comments, and I hear a lot of this, we make mistakes, we don't know what we're doing. Well, time out. I know those mistakes aren't being made by Steph, Clay, and Draymond. So, like, when I hear Kerr get really frustrated with mental errors, I feel like he's saying to Bob Myers, move Jordan Poole.
There's some of that from Clay, Dre, and Steph, too, that in terms of tolerating, in terms of let's help them along. We need it shows the championship mettle of those guys where they keep their eye on the target as opposed to getting lost in, Jordan, would you just stop? Would you do what we need you to do instead of whatever it is that you're
freelancing? And
it's quite the show at times. But if you're those guys and you're looking at your watch and saying, hey, this might be our last best chance, come along with the program, I understand why there would be frustration. They're in a really interesting place here, and I thought that they made a mistake not going all in right now. Like, Jonathan Kuminga has great potential, but the fact that the Lakers got Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt, those were the guys that I thought the Warriors should do everything possible to try to get them, or Jordan Clarkson, to get another legitimate, proven piece to go all in. I know you'd be mortgaging your future. You're only a championship team as long as Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Clay are there. Once that's done, you're not creating the second iteration with Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga. That's just not happening. So I would have gone for broke. Look, it's not my money. It's not my future as far as the team is concerned. But that's where I think that they're missing. And look, there's Jordan in last year's playoffs, series by series, played less and less.
Oh, yeah. No,
as things got, as attention to detail became more important, he became more marginal. And I want to see what happens this time around, whether they can change that. But he's still got this wild hair aspect to his game that they cannot afford to have in the playoffs. Their margin is not great enough to overcome that.
Okay, so the Kyrie thing's a mess. It doesn't work. Let's say they don't make the playoffs. Probably going to happen for Dallas. Do they just ship Kyrie out?
They can't. They have to re-sign him. Now, can you do a sign and trade? You'd be selling low. Honestly, their best avenue is you re-sign him, you figure out how you can rehabilitate the look of what Kyrie is and isn't, and then maybe you try to move him and change things up. He and you've mentioned it, and I'm not breaking any news here, but watching them, Luka and Kyrie are not only ball dominant, but they just play slow and they don't play together. Like, it's taking turns. It's a lot of KD and Russ in OKC. And I thought that they would just be better integrated, and they haven't been. And then the most disappointing thing is, if I thought they were going to win, it was because they were going to be so good on last possessions. Like, you're going to have to guard both of those guys. They've been in one possession games with under 3.5 minutes left in like their last 4 losses. Like, that's where they're losing, as well as because of their defense. And that's what I was not expecting.
The other thing both have, they're moody. They're two of the moodiest players in the league, and you can read Luka's body language sometimes when Kyrie has the ball. He's a spectator.
Yes.
He's not there. You can watch the body. Mark Cuban has to see it because I can see it. Is that Luka is not rooting for Kyrie.
Yeah.
He's just, okay, I'm taking this possession off.
Yeah, I wouldn't go quite that far, but I would say that Luka doesn't exactly know what to do when Kyrie has the ball, which is often the case because Kyrie is a great creative offensive player and makes a lot of highlight reels for Insta and TikTok and everything else. But if you're a teammate, you don't know where he's going. Right. You don't know what he's doing, which means you don't know where you should be.
Right. So the Celtics are fascinating. They're too athletic for Milwaukee in their matchups. Mm-hmm. They're outside of Drew Holiday. Tatum and Jaylen Brown get whatever they want. If Robert Williams is healthy, he can help diffuse Brook Lopez, Giannis, the size. Mm-hmm. So matchups are a big deal. For instance, Cleveland's youth and athleticism has given Boston some issues. Mm-hmm. Boston's speed on the wing and playmaking has given Milwaukee problems. Milwaukee can look really old, especially if they're not rested. Mm-hmm. Back to back, they look slow and old. Yeah. But the story really isn't Milwaukee because they have a title. The story of the East is Boston. They have been very patient, steadfast in their beliefs and their picks, and Brown and Marcus Smart and Jay. Do they win? Or do you see, because the East now, for the first time in a long time in my life, I feel like the top 4 to 5 in the East is better than the top 4 or 5 in the West. Yeah. So I think it's never been harder. There was an era where it was LeBron and the Hawks and the Raptors were trying to convince me they were great. Yeah. Like I think all 4, the Philly, Miami, Cleveland, Boston, Milwaukee, could all end up in the conference finals. Yeah. What's happening to Boston?
So I'm glad you brought up the Hawks as an example, because those teams that have come up short, it looked like they had all the pieces. Looked like they had all the elements. Who was their star player that led them to the promised land? Who was the guy that you said, no matter what, I can count on him. I know what he's going to give me. And he's never going to shy away from taking the horse by the reins. I wish I could take some of what Jaylen Brown's mentality and attitude is and put it in Jason Tatum.
Thank you.
And then you would have the player where I'd say, you know what, Boston's the team. But because they don't have that, or take some of Marcus Smart and put it in Jason Tatum, one or the other, their best player is not always their most aggressive, let me lead you there player.
This has been my knock.
And that's what creates the imbalance. And that's where, with, Philadelphia's kind of figure it out, but if Joel Embiid isn't exhausted at the end of the game, right, I know what he wants to do. Giannis, I know what he wants to do.
KD.
I like go through the whole Jimmy Butler. I mean, you could go down the line. Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland, take your pick. Like, whether they're good enough or I don't know. Jason Tatum, talent-wise, is good enough. Yeah. But I've just seen it too many times where it's like, okay, this is where he needs to step up. Where'd he go? That's what makes me hesitate when it comes to the Boston Celtics. That's what it's ultimately going to come down to.
Yeah, because the matchups are good. They do match up well with with Milwaukee. Yeah. They're just able to get to the basket kind of whenever.
And they're just the big, long, athletic wings, and Milwaukee has to control the tempo to avoid getting run over as they did the other night.
Ric Bucher, Fox, good seeing you, bud.
Good to see you.